Sometimes, what is Amazon? We do such a diverse array of things, from producing original content at Amazon Studios.
At 25, Jeff Bezos' son has finally spoken up, and what he revealed about his father is far from flattering. While Jeff and Lauren Sanchez just celebrated a wedding that could rival a Hollywood blockbuster, complete with A-list guests and over-the-top luxury, behind the glittering smiles, tension is brewing. Not everyone is raising a glass to the happy couple. And Preston Bezos, the eldest son of the Amazon founder, has now stepped into the spotlight. His words cut through the facade and reveal a truth about his father that few were prepared to hear. So what exactly did Preston expose about Jeff that has people talking? And could this revelation change how the world sees one of the richest men alive? Keep watching, because the truth is even messier than you think. The making of Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos didn't come into the world with a silver spoon in his mouth. Born Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen on January 12, 1964, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, his beginnings were far from glamorous. His mother, Jacqueline, was just 17, still a high school student trying to juggle textbooks and a newborn. His father, Ted Jorgensen, only 19, was a struggling unicyclist with a taste for trouble and an even bigger problem with alcohol. The marriage didn't stand a chance. By the time Jeff was just 17 months old, Jacqueline had filed for divorce, packed up, and taken her baby boy back to her parents' home. Ted's presence faded quickly. Jacqueline eventually asked him to cut ties altogether, and he agreed, stepping out of Jeff's life for good. But the story didn't end there. In 1968, Jacqueline remarried, this time to a Cuban immigrant named Miguel Mike Bezos. Mike wasn't just a stepfather, he legally adopted 4-year-old Jeff, giving him a new name, a new identity, and eventually, a new future. The family moved often as Mike chased engineering work, eventually landing in Houston, where Jeff went to River Oaks Elementary. Summers, though, were a different story. Jeff spent them at his grandfather Lawrence Gee's ranch in Texas. Geezy, once a powerful director at the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, had traded nuclear policy for ranch life, and it was here that young Jeff's curiosity really took off. He tinkered, experimented, and even wired up an electric alarm to keep his younger siblings out of his room. A hint of the inventive streak that would later build Amazon. By the time the family relocated again, this time to Miami, Jeff was already standing out as the kid with the big brain and even bigger dreams. At Miami Palmetto High School, he wasn't just a straight A student, he was valedictorian, a National Merit Scholar, and a Silver Knight Award winner. He even flipped burgers on the morning shift at McDonald's. A humble start for the man who'd eventually be worth hundreds of billions. But Jeff wasn't dreaming small. In his high school graduation speech, he shocked the crowd when he declared his vision. Mankind would one day colonize space, leaving Earth behind as one giant national park. It sounded outrageous at the time, but Jeff meant every word. After high school, Bezos headed to Princeton University, first chasing physics before realizing that even he had limits. A fellow classmate once outsolved him on a math problem, and Jeff, always pragmatic, ditched physics for electrical engineering and computer science. It was a pivot that would change everything. At Princeton, he wasn't just another brainy kid. He joined Phi Beta Kappa and Tau Beta Pi, and even became president of the Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. His GPA? A jaw-dropping 4.2. By 1986, he graduated summa cum laude with a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, a degree that would lay the foundation for the empire he was about to build. From a teenage mom's living room in Albuquerque to Princeton's ivy-covered halls, Jeff Bezos' story was already shaping into something larger than life. The world just didn't know it yet. How Bezos built Amazon. When Jeff Bezos walked out of Princeton in 1986, summa cum laude degree in hand, the world was already chasing him. Intel wanted him. Bell Labs wanted him. Big-name consulting firms wanted him. But instead of cozying up to corporate America, Bezos dived headfirst into the unknown, starting at a fintech startup called Vitel. There, he was tasked with building a global network for international trade. And before long, he was running development and customer service. But Bezos was restless. The banking world called, and by 1988, he had slipped into a product manager role at Bankers Trust. Just 2 years later, he jumped again, this time into the high-stakes world of hedge funds at D.E. Shaw and Company. By 30, he had climbed to become their fourth senior vice president. On paper, he was set for life. But Bezos had bigger plans. Spring 1994 changed everything. Bezos stumbled across a statistic that would flip his world upside down. Web usage was growing by a staggering 2,300% a year. To him, that wasn't just a number. It was destiny. He packed his car, grabbed his then-wife Mackenzie Scott, and mapped out the business plan for an online bookshop during a cross-country road trip from New York to Seattle. Their new home? A rented garage in Bellevue, Washington. Their first employees? Jeff and Mackenzie. She wrote the checks, kept the books, and even hammered out shipping contracts, while Jeff obsessed over building something that could outgrow that garage. The company almost started life as Cadabra, but Bezos realized it sounded a little too much like cadaver. He pivoted. The new name? Amazon, after the world's biggest river. To him, it symbolized the world's biggest bookshop. And, eventually, it became the world's biggest store. He also knew that a name starting with A would put him at the top of alphabetized search results, an advantage that mattered in the early days of the internet. His parents put up $300,000 of their own money, betting everything on their son's wild idea. Bezos warned early investors that Amazon had a 70% chance of failing, but that didn't stop him. The site launched on July 5, 1994, and the gamble paid off. Just 3 years later, Amazon went public, making Bezos one of the leading visionaries of the dot-com boom. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. In 1998, Bezos expanded beyond books into music and video, quickly followed by everything else under the sun. He raised $54 million and went on a shopping spree of smaller companies, scooping up Pets.com and Cosmo.com, both spectacular flops when the dot-com bubble burst. By 2000, Amazon was bleeding cash. Bezos borrowed $2 billion just to keep the lights on, and things got so bad he shut down warehouses and laid off 14% of his workforce. For a moment, Amazon teetered on the edge of collapse. Then, in 2003, it finally turned a profit, $35 million. Just like that, the beast was back. From there, Bezos couldn't be stopped. In 2007, he dropped the Kindle, a sleek device that revolutionized how people read. In 2013, Amazon Web Services scored a $600 million CIA contract, proving the company wasn't just about shopping, it was about data, power, and infrastructure. By 2018, Amazon had broken profit records, pulling in $2 billion in a single quarter, and Bezos was officially the richest man alive with a fortune topping $100 billion. But along with the triumph came fire. As Amazon grew, so did criticism. In 2018, Senator Bernie Sanders came at him hard with the Stop Bezos Act, calling out Amazon for underpaying workers who still relied on food stamps. Sanders challenged him to raise wages instead of chasing space dreams. The pressure worked. Bezos doubled down and announced that Amazon would pay all employees at least $15 an hour, a move that both silenced critics and set a new standard across corporate America. Through it all, Bezos kept looking beyond Earth. He had been obsessed with space since his high school days, and in 2000, he founded Blue Origin, a passion project fueled by his Amazon billions. For years, The company operated in near secrecy, but by 2015, it had made headlines with successful rocket landings. In July 2021, Bezos finally strapped himself in and blasted off aboard the New Shepard with his brother Mark. The flight lasted just over 10 minutes, but for Bezos, it was proof that his teenage dream of pushing humanity into space wasn't just talk, it was happening. And then there was the Washington Post. In 2013, Bezos dropped $250 million to buy the struggling newspaper. Critics accused him of using it for influence, but under his watch, the Post went digital, profitable, and powerful again. Still, questions about how much sway Bezos held over the paper's editorial decisions refused to die down. From a garage in Seattle to the edge of space, from books to cloud servers to artificial intelligence, Jeff Bezos built an empire that reinvented the way we shop, work, and even think about the future. But behind the milestones, controversies, and fortune, one thing is clear. Bezos isn't just playing for today, he's been playing for centuries. Still, for all the triumphs in business and space, Bezos's personal life was a battlefield of its own. Jeff Bezos's most expensive divorce. When Jeff Bezos said "I do" to Lauren Sanchez on June 27, 2025, it wasn't just a wedding, it was a spectacle. Think less private vows and more royal coronation. The guest list alone read like the credits of a Hollywood blockbuster. Tom Brady, Oprah Winfrey, Kris Jenner, Kim and Khloe Kardashian, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, Queen Rania of Jordan, and even fashion royalty Domenico Dolce of Dolce & Gabbana. Between the billionaires, Oscar winners, and reality TV icons, the whole thing screamed money, power, and influence. But while Bezos and Sanchez basked in the spotlight, rumors swirled in the background. Not everyone is toasting the newlyweds, and curiosity has turned back to the first woman who once stood at Bezos' side, Mackenzie Scott. Long before Bezos was the richest man alive, before rockets, mega yachts, and celebrity guest lists, there was Mackenzie. The year was 1992. Both were working at D.E. Shaw, a New York hedge fund where Bezos was already climbing fast. Mackenzie, a Princeton-educated writer, noticed him first. She later joked that she heard his booming laugh through the walls of the office and knew she had to meet him. A whirlwind romance followed, and by 1993, they were married. The newlyweds moved to Seattle, and Mackenzie became Bezos' first true business partner, helping him launch Amazon out of their garage, while also believing in his then wild dream to sell books on the internet. For 25 years, Mackenzie and Jeff were a power couple, quietly at first, then publicly, as Amazon exploded into a $1 trillion empire. Together, they raised 4 children, 3 sons, including their eldest, Preston, and 1 daughter adopted from China. Unlike their father, who lives in front of cameras, the kids have grown up largely shielded from public life, with their names and ages kept private. But in January 2019, the facade cracked. The pair announced their separation in a joint statement on Twitter, back before it became X, writing that if they had known they'd split after 25 years, we would do it all again. The divorce was billed as amicable, with no public mudslinging and no messy courtroom drama. Yet the financial settlement shook the world. Mackenzie walked away with 25% of their shared Amazon stock, a jaw-dropping $36 billion at the time, instantly making her one of the richest women alive. Bezos kept 75%, and, importantly, voting control in Amazon. And here's where Mackenzie's story takes its own sharp turn. While Bezos doubled down on rockets, yachts, and a relationship that grabbed headlines, Mackenzie turned her billions into a weapon of generosity. Through her foundation, Yield Giving, she's donated more than $19 billion in just 6 years. sometimes dropping hundreds of millions on a single nonprofit without warning. No strings attached. Universities, food banks, women's shelters, climate organizations, you name it. She's changed their futures overnight. A recent study called her style of giving transformational. And it's true. She's rewritten the rulebook on modern philanthropy, becoming a stark contrast to her ex-husband's much slower approach to charitable giving. Mackenzie is also a novelist. Her first book, The Testing of Luther Albright, won an American Book Award, while her second, Traps, cemented her literary chops. But it's her life post-divorce that captivates people. A woman who became one of the wealthiest in the world and decided to give most of it away. She's also part of the Giving Pledge, joining Warren Buffett, Bill and Melinda Gates, and other billionaires promising to donate the majority of their wealth during their lifetimes. Her personal life, meanwhile, has had its twists. In 2021, she married Seattle science teacher Dan Jewett, a sweet, understated match compared to Bezos. But the marriage was short-lived. By September 2022, Scott filed for divorce, which was finalized just a few months later in early 2023. Today, she's single, sitting on a net worth of around $31.5 billion, and still reshaping philanthropy with every check she signs. As for Bezos, he's still Amazon's biggest shareholder, now serving as executive chairman after stepping down as CEO in 2021. His fortune? A cool $226.7 billion. And while he's busy throwing galas, sailing his $500 million yacht, and blasting himself into space with Blue Origin, Mackenzie has become one of the most influential philanthropists of her generation. 2 marriages, 4 children, 1 empire, and billions of dollars later, Jeff Bezos' story is no longer just about him. It's also about the woman who helped build Amazon from the ground up and then used her divorce settlement to try to make the world a better place. And with Bezos now stepping into married life once again, one thing is clear. His first marriage may be over, but Mackenzie Scott's legacy is only just beginning. But when 2 people this powerful split, it isn't just fortunes that get divided, it's futures. Their children grew up in the shadows of both an empire and a divorce that rewrote history books. And at the center of that next chapter is the eldest son, the one who literally carries Jeff's middle name as his own. Who is Preston Bezos? At 25, Preston Bezos is finally being noticed, not just as the eldest son of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and philanthropist Mackenzie Scott, but as someone carving out his own identity under the weight of one of the most powerful last names in the world. Born in 2000, Preston carries more than just his father's legacy. He literally carries his name, with Preston taken straight from Jeff's own middle name. The Bezos kids have been raised largely in the shadows, and Preston, as the oldest of 4 siblings, including 2 younger brothers and an adopted sister from China, has always been the one people watch most closely. He's rumored to have attended Princeton, following in the footsteps of his mother. But thanks to the family's famously tight grip on privacy, details of his academic and personal life are almost impossible to pin down. The Bezos clan doesn't let much slip, and that secrecy has only fueled curiosity about who Preston really is when he's not standing next to his billionaire father. Still, every now and then, he steps out of the shadows. In November 2019, he took the stage at the American Portrait Gala at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery, presenting an award to his father. Just months later, in 2020, he walked the red carpet at the Academy Awards, standing alongside Jeff as Amazon Studios earned a nomination for Les Miserables. It was one of the few times the world got to see him. But here's the twist. Beyond these carefully staged glimpses, Preston's life is still a mystery. No career moves, no LinkedIn profile, no public ventures. Unlike his father, whose every step rewrites headlines, Preston has kept his professional path completely under wraps, and that silence only raises more questions. Is he preparing to step into the Bezos empire in his own way? Or is he planning something far different from the Amazon-sized legacy his father built? One thing is certain, though. Every time Preston surfaces, people take notice. And with Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez dominating headlines for their extravagant love story, Preston's quiet presence in the background feels even louder. Because when the son of one of the richest men alive finally speaks or acts, everyone is going to listen. And while he prefers to keep the spotlight at arm's length, his father has done the opposite. Jeff Bezos has leaned all the way into the public eye, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's scandalous love story. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez have turned the how it started versus how it's going meme into something Hollywood itself couldn't script better. From secret text exchanges splashed across tabloids to a wedding in Venice that looked like it was ripped straight out of a Fellini film, the couple's story has had everything. Love, scandal, power, betrayal, reinvention, and, of course, more money than most of us can wrap our heads around. Their romance didn't just make headlines, it detonated them. Back in 2019, the world was still trying to digest the shockwaves of Jeff Bezos' divorce from Mackenzie Scott, 25 years of marriage, 4 kids, a joint empire worth hundreds of billions, and suddenly, it was over. Bezos painted the split as amicable, tweeting that, though the labels might be different, we remain a family. And we remain friends. A noble attempt at damage control, sure. But behind the scenes, the real story was already unraveling. Because hours, literally hours, after announcing the divorce, Bezos' new romantic chapter was already being written in bold headlines. And starring opposite him, Lauren Sanchez, a glamorous former TV anchor and helicopter pilot who was separated but not yet officially divorced from Hollywood power agent Patrick Whitesell. The scandal had receipts. The National Enquirer gleefully published Bezos and Sanchez's intimate text exchanges, painting the affair as a betrayal fit for a primetime soap. The same day Bezos announced his split, the world was suddenly reading messages that belonged deep inside his private phone. Even more salacious, the Enquirer allegedly threatened to publish explicit photos unless Bezos played nice with their coverage. But Bezos didn't back down. Instead, he went nuclear. On Medium, he accused the tabloid's parent company, AMI, of extortion, writing that any embarrassment to him didn't matter nearly as much as exposing what he called their attempts at blackmail. He asked the question that ricocheted across the internet. If I can't stand up to this kind of extortion, how many people can? That move reframed the scandal. Suddenly, Bezos wasn't just a billionaire caught in messy texts. He was a billionaire willing to take on a tabloid empire. And while many were side-eyeing how quickly he had moved on from his wife of 25 years, others saw him as a man who refused to be bullied, no matter the stakes. And through it all, Lauren Sanchez was right there. Their public debut may have been turbulent, but once they cleared the storm, Bezos and Sanchez began thriving not just as a couple, but as partners in every sense. Sanchez, who runs her own aerial film production company, Black Ops Aviation, admitted that their lives quickly became intertwined. They flew together, worked out together, collaborated on projects, and even brainstormed children's books together. Their worlds meshed so seamlessly that separation became almost unthinkable. It's ironic, though, because Bezos once warned against flying helicopters after surviving a crash in 2003. He famously said, "Helicopters weren't as reliable as fixed-wing planes." Fast forward to today, and not only is he back in the cockpit, but he's proudly flying one with Sanchez, of course, as his unofficial and hilariously overbearing backseat pilot. Bezos joked in one interview that she's terrible in that role, always shouting corrections. Sanchez didn't deny it. She laughed, admitting she can't help herself. That banter between them isn't just charming, it's the thread that runs through their relationship. Bezos has always lived by the philosophy of taking risks, a motto he shared years ago in his Princeton commencement speech. He asked graduates whether they'd guard their hearts against rejection or dare to be a little swashbuckling. Sanchez revealed that he repeats that same mantra to her in private. Fly fast. Take chances. For her, those words became fuel while she was building her all-female Blue Origin space flight project. Still, dating one of the world's most famous billionaires hasn't been all champagne and helicopter rides. Sanchez admitted that she's had to learn restraint. She's naturally outspoken, loves sharing her life, and used to be the kind of person who would post freely on Instagram. But with Bezos, she's had to pull back. No live updates of their location, no oversharing of details that could ripple out into headlines. For someone as open as she is, it was a major adjustment, but one she's embraced as part of protecting their shared bubble. And inside that bubble, their life together is almost surprisingly normal. Sanchez described typical weekends as hanging out with the kids over dinner, never knowing where the conversation might lead with so many personalities at the table. Sunday mornings are reserved for Bezos's Pancakes. Yes, Pancakes. The man who built Amazon and owns rockets still insists on cracking open the Betty Crocker cookbook every single time. Sanchez teases him about not having the recipe memorized, but Bezos swears by precision. Exact measurements, he insists, make the best pancakes in the world. That small detail paints a picture. For all the extravagance of their Venice wedding and the staggering fortune behind it, their bond is grounded in something human. He cooks, she teases. They laugh. But don't be fooled, because his love story has been stitched together with legal armor, too. Unlike his first marriage, which ended without a prenup and cost him a jaw-dropping $38 billion in Amazon stock, this time, Bezos came prepared. Legal experts confirmed that he and Sanchez signed a prenuptial agreement before their Venetian I-do's. Sources close to the matter said it was drafted broadly enough to be enforceable anywhere in the world. And since the couple's primary residence is Florida, any potential divorce would legally have to happen there. The prenup, insiders revealed, was designed with Bezos' interests front and center. While Sanchez may have been motivated to keep her property separate, it's Bezos who truly benefits from the safety net. Experts pointed out that he would have been keenly aware of the financial fallout from his first divorce, and he wasn't about to repeat history. And that's the duality of Jeff Bezos, a man who preaches risk-taking but insulates himself with meticulous safeguards. A billionaire who builds rockets for fun, but still trusts Betty Crocker over memory when it comes to pancakes. A lover who risked scandal for Sanchez, but protected his empire with legal fine print. Through it all, Bezos and Sanchez present themselves not as a power couple in the traditional sense, but as teammates. They talk about each other with admiration, describing their relationship as easy, energizing, and fun. They insist they're equals, fueling each other's ambitions while staying grounded in everyday rituals. And maybe that's why, despite the tabloid beginnings and eyebrow-raising timeline, their relationship has endured. For Bezos, this isn't just another chapter. It's a chance to write a new kind of story. One built on choice, risk, and the kind of partnership he once described in his Princeton speech. When you're 80, looking back on your life, it won't be the scandals or the stock prices you remember. It will be the choices you made. For better or worse, Bezos has chosen Sanchez. And together, they've built not just a love story, but one of the most scrutinized, messy, glamorous, and oddly relatable romances of our time. But away from the yachts, Bezos's highly publicized love life, there have been stories surfacing that painted a much darker picture of the man. The lawsuit against Bezos. In 2022, Jeff Bezos found himself in headlines for something unthinkable. The Amazon founder was being sued by a former housekeeper who claimed that life behind the gates of Bezos's Seattle mansion was anything but golden. Mercedes Weda, who had worked in the billionaire's home for 3 years, dropped a lawsuit that painted a disturbing picture. She alleged racial discrimination, grueling work conditions, and, perhaps most shocking of all, that she and other Hispanic staff were forced to climb out of a laundry room window just to use the bathroom. Yes, the world's second richest man allegedly had housekeepers crawling out of windows like fugitives, simply because they weren't allowed to enter the house unless they were scrubbing it clean. According to Weda, the rules inside the Bezos household weren't the same for everyone. She claimed the billionaire's household manager treated white groundskeepers with respect, while becoming aggressive and abusive toward her and other Hispanic staff. The contrast, she said, was undeniable. The lawsuit went further. Weda alleged she regularly pulled 10 to 14-hour shifts whenever Bezos and his family were in residence, without lunch or rest breaks. With no break room and nowhere else to go, the staff often ate in the laundry room like an afterthought. But the real kicker was the bathroom situation. For about 18 months, Weda and her fellow housekeepers allegedly had no direct access to restrooms. Instead, they had to squeeze out of a laundry room window, hustle along an outdoor path, slip through a mechanical room, and finally make it downstairs to a bathroom. The process was humiliating, exhausting, and, according to the lawsuit, even dangerous to their health. Weda claimed many of them developed urinary tract infections from constantly being forced to hold it in rather than risk breaking the rules. Weda didn't just take aim at Bezos himself. She sued him personally, along with 2 companies tied to his wealth, Zephram LLC and Northwestern LLC, which helped manage his sprawling properties. But Bezos's camp pushed back hard. His attorney, Harry Correll, dismissed the claims outright, calling them absurd. He insisted Weda had been paid handsomely, over 6 figures annually, and noted she was the lead housekeeper, which meant she was in charge of her own breaks and meal times. Correll also argued that bathrooms and rest areas were always available, and Weda's termination had nothing to do with discrimination but performance issues. Adding fuel to the fire, Bezos's team pointed out that Weda had initially demanded a staggering $9 million before filing the lawsuit. When that demand was refused, the suit followed. To them, this wasn't about discrimination, it was about money. Still, the lawsuit raised uncomfortable questions. Here was a billionaire who had built a global empire on the back of convenience, delivering groceries, gadgets, and just about everything else to people's doorsteps. Yet his own staff allegedly couldn't even use the bathroom in his house without crawling through a window. And if the criticism from outsiders wasn't enough, Bezos also had to deal with honesty coming from a place even closer to home, his own family. What Preston Bezos said about his father. At 25, Jeff Bezos' son finally dropped a truth bomb about his father, and it wasn't exactly flattering. It happened in the middle of what should have been a proud moment for Bezos. Amazon had just poured a mountain of cash into the Lord of the Rings of Power, and the world was watching. At the London premiere, Bezos was grinning on stage, telling the audience how Tolkien had been passed down like a family heirloom. His grandfather introduced him to Middle-earth, he said. And now his own kids were die-hard Tolkien fans too. But the part that turned heads? The warning came from inside his own house. One of my boys, Bezos admitted, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Dad, please don't F this up." It wasn't a joke. His son, practically a Tolkien scholar by his father's own account, wasn't sugarcoating anything. He knew what was at stake, not just for the fandom, but for Bezos' empire. Billions were on the line, and so was Amazon's reputation. Imagine that, your own kid telling you the truth no one else dared to. Bezos tried to laugh it off, joking about how the showrunners, Patrick McKay and John D. Payne, loved his script notes before quickly admitting that the smartest thing they did was ignore him. "I need to thank you for listening whenever it helped," he said, "but mostly for ignoring me at exactly the right times." The Odeon Lux in Leicester Square was packed with Hollywood faces, Tolkien's own grandson, and die-hard fans dressed as if they'd just stepped out of Mordor. Yet, the moment that stuck wasn't the glittering premiere, the star-studded crowd, or even the billion-dollar visuals on screen. It was the rare glimpse of Bezos being checked not by critics, not by Wall Street, but by his own son. And that offhand confession left people wondering, if his son was bold enough to call him out on Middle-earth, what else had he seen behind the curtain of the world's second richest man? Do you think the Bezos kids have a strong feeling about their father's marriage to Lauren Sanchez? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.